to 8.3. This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville approving and authorizing the city manager to execute and enter into sublease by and between the City of Emeryville and the Emeryville Unified School District in connection with the Emeryville City Center for Community Life project. And Mr. Biddle, you back up?
Yeah.
Are you?
Coming.
So we're requesting, let me turn this. So before you is a request to approve a sublease agreement between the city and the Unified School District in connection with the Emeryville Center of Community Life project. The resolution authorizes the city manager to execute the resolution, and also in connection with approving the sublease as a responsible agency under the California Environmental Quality Act, the council must also consider the adequacy of mitigation measures outlined in the mitigated negative declaration that are proposed to mitigate the environmental impacts associated with asbestos lead abatement activities. I should note that the school district approved the mitigated negative declaration last night at their board meeting. And I'm going to hand you some documents that I did provide to you earlier. I forwarded. One, there are 4 sets of documents. One is a response to a comment letter that the city had submitted. So it's a response that the environmental consultant LSA provided to the board. The second is a response to comment letter that they prepared relative to the comments submitted by community members. The third is just a recommended text changes to the initial study that were then adopted relative to certain mitigation measures. And it shows you the text changes that were made. And then finally, the last document is just a clean version of the mitigation monitoring reporting document that incorporates these text changes. So if you bear with me for a half second, I'll give you these for your file. So if any members of the public want to see these, there's copies of each of these documents that I just handed the council here. So in 2002, as part of the financial recovery of the district, the city agreed to enter into and lease portions of the school district facilities that the city could then use for its recreation program. So the city has an existing lease with the district where we lease the pool, the gymnasium, and the athletic field complex, and we utilize those facilities for recreational activities. Since 2003, the city and the district have been planning the development of a multi-purpose facility that is commonly known to everybody is the Emeryville Center of Community Life project. Over the past year, district and city staff have been working together to negotiate and draft a master joint occupancy agreement which sets forth certain conditions precedent to the effectiveness of that agreement, It also addresses responsibilities pertaining to the construction and development of the project, obligations for financing the development and construction, the terms under which the district would lease the project site to the city, the manner in which the project would be governed by the city and the district under this governance agreement, as well as respective obligations of the city and the district for ongoing operations and maintenance costs and capital replacement and shared use of the project. One of the attachments to the proposed occupancy agreement is a sublease agreement, which essentially provides for the city to sublease the premises that were subject to the existing original lease back to the district during the period of time that the ECCL project is under construction. As a result of providing for this sublease, the city will have no exposure to any claim that could arise as a result of the activities on the project site, since the district will be required to indemnify the city from any such claims and provide insurance during the term of the sublease for the city's benefit. By approving the sublease, the district will be able to move forward with certain abatement activities at this time, essentially dealing with asbestos and lead abatement that you need to do in advance of proceeding with any demolition and construction on the site. As I noted, the district board last night approved the sublease agreement, and at that meeting, as the lead agency under the California Environmental Equality Act, they also approved the initial study mitigated negative declaration prepared for the project. The council is being asked to approve the sublease, which will allow the district to commence with necessary abatement activities. Additionally, as a responsible agency, the council has to consider the adequacy of the mitigation measures outlined in the neg deck that are proposed to mitigate the environmental effects associated with the asbestos lead abatement. As a responsible agency, city staff, we responded to consultation by the district's environmental consultant as the lead agency. So we, city staff, have been in touch with LSA over the last year and a half or so in preparing the neg deck. Thus, by engaging in this consultative process, which is required by CEQA, it ensures the city as a responsible agency that the neg deck that we would be relying upon when we are considering the environmental effects of the project, when we are asked to consider certain discretionary actions such as sublease, and then obviously the project approvals that will be considered by the Planning Commission later this month. As a result of this consultative process, a negative declaration adopted by a lead agency is conclusively presumed to comply with CEQA for purposes of use by responsible agencies. So if a responsible agency believes that the negative declaration prepared by the lead agency is not adequate, you essentially must do one of four things, and really only two of them are available to you. One, you can file a lawsuit within 30 days after the lead agency files a notice of determination pertaining to their adoption of the negative declaration. The second is to do nothing and be deemed to have waived any objection to the adequacy of the neg deck. The third, which really isn't applicable in this situation, is to prepare a subsequent EIR if permissible under CEQA, and under CEQA guidelines sections 15162, excuse me. But that section is not applicable in this situation, since you are dealing with 15162 really speaks to subsequent changes in the project or in the environment, and we don't have that factual situation at this time. The fourth is to assume the lead agency role under CEQA guidelines, and again, that is not a option available to the council. So in this instance, the city must either accept the adequacy of the neg deck for purposes of considering the environmental effects of the project, or file a lawsuit challenge its adequacy, and staff is recommending the council accept the adequacy of the document. Generally, you should note that when considering mitigation measures set forth in the neg deck, responsible agency is much more limited than a lead agency. A responsible agency has responsibility for mitigating or avoiding only the direct or indirect effects of those parts of the project which it decides to carry out, finance, or approve. So in the context of the ECCL project, the city is in fact financing a significant portion of and approving the entirety of the project. So it's our view that the council retains significant discretion as it relates to consideration of appropriate mitigation measures. I would also note that regardless of whether the council decides to be a participant in the ECCL project, approval of the sublease is required in order to protect the interests of the city. So we have an interest in approving the sublease so that as construction commences, whether we're involved or not, that we're not exposed to any claims. And I would note that the sublease specifically recognizes that in the event the city and the district do not enter into the proposed occupancy agreement, that the original sublease sort of continues and governs the city's occupancy of the premises. So we would still have our rights under our existing lease to use of the field, the gym, the pool. With that, staff is recommending approval of the sublease, and if you have any questions.
Okay. Any questions of the council? Of Mr. Biddle?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a comment. I think staff and members of the Emeryville School Board and members of the City Council have worked very, very long and very hard, very diligently on this project. It is a complex project. It is going to have problems have come forward in the past. They will come forward again. But I want to thank staff and the rest of the members of the elected officials for sticking with this extraordinarily important project. And I'd like to move the resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay. I'd like to hold for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. First and second, do you have anything you want to say, John?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. If I had any comments on the MMRP, I realize it's already been adopted, as I understand it, by the school board, the school district last night. Is there a place to share those comments, or should I just state them for my own entertainment? Is there any?
Well, it's been approved, but certainly really we're looking at the mitigation measures as they are addressed, really addressing sort of the asbestos activities that are being authorized by this sublease.
So maybe if
if you have comments or you know revisions you'd like to see to the you know the measures when the project comes before you, if you think there are measures that would strengthen, let's say, the mitigation measures, then that might be an opportunity to consider those at that time.
So I'm going to mention one as an example. It's a very minor adjustment, but maybe we can, I'll try and remember it and hope that when we come forward in the future we could incorporate it. I'm looking at Table 1, the matrix on page 10, which talks about noise, and it talks about the PA system, which I believe is part of our purview. It doesn't have to do with lead and asbestos in this case, but that the fields are part of the area that are going to be what the city has. Well, actually, I think in the end we may have leased the whole site, but in any case, I think the fields are under somewhat the city's purview, and it talks about keeping the PA system located and shielded to focus sound away from residential land uses located west of the project site. But it doesn't comment on the residential land uses immediately north of the project site, and I don't know if that's an oversight or why we wouldn't be mitigating those properties as well. They're not in our city limits, but I think those people deserve quiet as
And
well.
I think that sort of measure to strengthen the mitigation measures is something that, I don't think it really is something that you need to address at this time.
Okay.
But certainly when, when you're considering the master occupancy agreement, I think that would be a time to consider it. And likewise, the Planning Commission is going to consider it on the 25th, and they would, I think, have the authority to make that revision as well. It's if you start trying to weaken mitigation measures that you cause problems.
So I could share my comments with staff. They could be incorporated or could be shared with the Planning Commission.
I
is
think
what
it'd
you're
be
saying.
appropriate to share it to the Planning Commission, but I think if you directed them to Charlie, that would be a way to
Okay.
facilitate that.
Okay.
I'm going to have to consult further with the city
Yeah.
attorney on this issue. We're in the rather unusual situation of being a responsible agency under CEQA. Usually when we do a mitigated neg deck or an EIR, whatever it may be, then there's mitigation measures. We're the lead agency. And then if the decision-making body feels that, whether it's the Planning Commission or City Council feels that it's appropriate, they can modify the mitigation measures when they, approve, before they adopt the mitigated neg deck or EIR and approve the project. In this case, the school district is the lead agency. As the lead agency, they're the ones who have to accept the mitigation measures. It's technically it's their project. Responsible agencies have more limited authority under CEQA, and frankly, I'm not really that familiar with it because, as I say, it's an unusual situation to be in. We're usually not the responsible agency, so I just want to explore this a little further with the city attorney about exactly what we can and
I've
can't
been
do.
in the situation before with IKEA, so
Okay.
I'm comfortable with what I'm telling you, is that you have the authority to make revisions to that. Likewise, it's clearly something you could do as a condition of approval. You don't even have to do it as a mitigation measure under CEQA.
Okay.
Right.
Call the question on the resolution.
Wait. I just want to make sure Jennifer's done. Do you have any other questions?
No, I don't. at this
Okay.
time. Thank you.
Jack?
No.
Okay.
I just want to say, though, that I agree with Nora. A lot of time and a lot of staff effort and a lot of money has been put into working on this project. And I guess what I feel at this point is that it's unfortunate that I have so many concerns and questions at this late date. And so for me, I feel like every time I approve something for this project, I'm told, don't worry, you can fix it later. You can fix it later. And it seems like later is now. And so I'm not going to be able to vote in support of this. And going forward, I hope that I can get some of my concerns addressed, that we're able to have an open dialogue with the school district about this project, and that we make a better project than what we have in front of us right now.
Okay. Karen?
Motion by Davis, seconded by Atkin.
That's correct.
Councilmember Atkin.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember West.
Aye, but I would like to just state that this is on the sublease that we're considering, and I still have other concerns that we will address as we continue to talk about this project. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Asher
No.
and Mayor Brinkman.
Aye. Okay. Thank you all for coming out for that one. I think this is going to be an easy one. 8.4.